Thank you for being here, and thank you for being part of Mission Accepted podcast. And not that you were probably wondering, but I'm going to share why Mission Accepted is the name of the podcast, because as someone who's been in his craft for 25 or 30 years, you were sharing, you at some point decided to say yes. At some point you decided that this is what I was going to do as an entrepreneur or a creative or what have you. And when you take on that mission, doesn't it change? It evolves.
It does very much. I mean, it's...
You're going to need to talk really loud into that guy.
It's kind of a bit of a journey of discovery of the self, as well as your, tapping into your creative potential, I guess. So, yeah, it's an interesting transition period when you first start like that.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to put it, the journey of yourself. And I mean, we've been kind of both doing what we're doing for a long time, and I don't think it's all just about skill. I don't think it's linear. I don't think it's about learning the next technique. I think it's becoming a different version. Maybe, hopefully, it's the best version of you as you go. But take us back to when you decided to become an artist. I mean,
well, I don't think there's any one aha moment. It's kind of just evolved. I started actually a general interest as a hobbyist, perhaps, making things for myself for, all good reasons. But so then I did attend art school for a period of time. So I learned, some other kinds of studio experiences and skills. And that transitioned to being able to show my work and so forth. And so, I've been doing it for a while.
All right.
Yeah.
So as you did this as a hobby, you decided to maybe make it more of a serious hobby and go and learn some skills. And then from doing the work to taking it out into the world. Talk about that, because we have all sorts of, people talk about the challenge of pricing their work and that it's actually a part of them. Some people have a hard time separating themselves. They have a garage full because they can't let it go. And so you've obviously had to learn to go through that process, letting it go, create it, making a business out of it, pricing it, and that can trigger a whole lot of things for people.
Exactly. Well, I think my path perhaps is a little different in the sense that I kind of not emerged, but I did a lot of my early work through community kind of projects. So I was involved in community galleries and looking for different kinds of places to show, anything from a neighborhood house to a community center. So that was an interesting, beginning. And subsequently, I've been involved with a couple of different artist associations and groups, which has allowed me to meet other professional artists and provide different kind of venues for getting my work out over time. So.
Right. So what I take from that is that when you surround yourself with like-minded people, it makes that process so much easier, right?
Of course.
Because there's people that keep it to themselves or in their mind, or I don't think I'm good enough, or does my work compare to this person or that person? Did you ever go through anything like that where you wondered if your work was ready?
Well, I think the first stage is to accept the fact that you are in fact an artist, because once you bite into that, then it becomes a nice habit.
Right.
And so you start to get more and more involved, more need to express yourself through shows and so forth. Yeah, so it's kind of it evolves, but it's something you feel you have to complete. So in a sense.
Was there anyone that and I'm sure there was many, that encouraged you or you saw or kind of you looked up to or what have you, but was there anyone in particular? I was talking to a gentleman earlier that his grandmother was a really, did you hear that interview? I can't repeat it because it was a colorful conversation. He had a colorful grandmother. But was there anyone that, there's two sides to it. I remember when I went into my first business and it was in aromatherapy, and it was before there was no one knew what aromatherapy was. And a very good friend of mine said to me, the world's not ready for that. And I swear the first 3 to 4 years of my business, I was just so pissed off at her that it made myself successful. But then there's the other person who I'll never forget, my grade 7 social studies teacher inspired you. So do you have anyone like that or any situation like that?
Well, I certainly have met some alternative artists early on, and they just observing what they were, not just their lifestyle, but how they showed their work and so forth. That helped a lot to get started. One particular fellow who has since passed, actually Ken Guberg, who was an East Vancouver artist for a long period of time, worked in the field of assemblage sculpture, something that I've also pursued. He was a very inspiring kind of character, and there have been people who have influenced me directly also.
Okay. And tell us, what kind of work do you do? What kind of medium do you do? And has it changed over the years, or have you stuck pretty well?
Yeah, I think that when I first started, it was simple experiments at university doing photography.
Okay.
And I guess that evolved into exploring 3 dimensions a little differently. So working with found objects, working with, trying to always work toward more the abstract, but the reality is not making things that are functional, but certainly things that had more artistic interest to me. So yeah, it has changed over time.
Okay.
Yeah, and now I seem to be more involved in the volunteer side, in the sense of involved with Sculptors Society BC is my latest organization.
Okay.
Prior to that, I was the president of the Burnaby Arts Council. So different kinds of community development approaches, but my personal art journey is pursuing areas of 3D interest mostly. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful. Any particular medium, like?
No, I guess I view myself as being pretty open to experimentation, like a multimedia type artist. Although I'm not working in the digital realm so much, more in objects and construction, fabrication.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've seen the evolution of how art is, come to play, and now we're going as far as lots of digital. How things have become very digital.
Right.
What's your take on all that? And feel free, but
yeah, I mean can be complex because it's almost a generational thing. It's like the digital realm is the realm now. Beyond the online, it's going to the virtual and beyond. So EFTs are a hot topic. I mean, I'm sure that'll change over time, but so every artist, pretty much, no matter what tradition or practice they're working in, I think has to be aware of the digital space. So. In fact, other sculptors that I'm aware of, they're all keen to get their work scanned, to get it out in different ways. So yeah, the digital world is something that we live with. It's part of change. They adapt. We have to learn more.
It's true, right? There's some people that are just listening to us and not watching us, and I'm just going to say we're probably both not 20 anymore, and
We're not.
and really, I always say I'm glad that my children are 10 years apart, and I'm like, I'm grateful for my 18-year-old for a number of things, but one of the things is that it keeps me very current.
Oh,
I find that, but I think to stay in the marketplace, you have to be open and understand. I mean, I've learned more about online marketing in the last 2.5 years than, honestly, I thought I'd signed up for.
Exactly. I mean, digital worlds, the meta universe, it's all about change. It's all about learning new languages, ways to express yourself. I mean, the core is not going to change. You're a creative person, so it's just another vehicle, essentially.
Right.
But yeah, you have to be aware and learn. You have to be open to learning.
So advice for somebody that decides that they want to be an artist, and it sounds like it's been your life career?
No, I think
No?
the latter half of my adult life is being focused on the arts.
Okay. So advice for someone that's making that decision?
Well, I think looking back even from my time learning is that I would say that if an artist beginning has the opportunity to get really strong basic skills in the creative field, I mean, that's like learning, not a trade, but learning how to make things skillfully so that they not only look good, but they have a really solid content. Right. That can make a difference. So for a young artist, I think you have to be, you have to commit a bit, but you also have to educate yourself so that what you're doing is actually evolves into a professional activity. Right. I think that makes a big difference, actually.
So there's the whole creative process, for, when we've become, I've interviewed authors, I've been an author, there's a creative process, and then there's the other side to it, the business and the commerce side to it. What's that been like for you to go from artist to business and commerce?
Well, I had a small business prior to declaring myself an artist, so I'm kind of aware of the basis, perhaps, of the business community. Okay. But that aside, working with an economic focus in arts is a very strange marriage at times, because there's often a disconnect between what the energy you put into creating something and the actual trying to make a sale or people recognize the value in that. So that's a whole nother complex area for marketing, for promotion, for learning that kind of skill area. Yeah, so I mean, I have sold work, obviously. I have some work in collections that are, to me, they're important to me. They might not be internationally recognized, but I've always focused on making work from out of my interest first.
Right.
The business part was a bonus if it happened, and I just applied basic business marketing skills when I could.
Right. And is there, so for, again, people that are listening or that are going through that process themselves, are there artists, because you've obviously been a part of a lot of associations, so I'm sure you have a lot of colleagues. Is there some people that just like, I create and they farm that out? Is there agents that people go to, or is it suck it up buttercup, you better learn about business because that's how you're going to pay your rent, or?
Well, it's ironic because when I think even within the organizational format, I mean, like the Sculptors Society at BC, which I'm a member, it's kind of a loose network of individual business people, even though because they are self-motivated, creative people, but they're not depending on the organization to provide an income necessarily. So it's more of the opportunity that something like that might provide to them as a small business person.
Right.
But it comes down to, they're on their own in terms of learning those business skills so that they can benefit from them, really.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're here. You have a booth at the art fair here this weekend?
I'm a member of, there's about one of 14 members to the Sculpture Society here. So we actually have an open floor area over here that's lit up with samples of our members' work. So we asked people just to submit a couple pieces each as a sampling of the kind of creative talents we have in-house. And so that's what's happening. It's looking good.
Yeah.
Lots of good feedback, and we're happy to be here.
Yeah, so talk to that a little bit, because there's artists are like, I don't know if I should go into a show or not. I may not be ready for a show.
Yeah.
What's that like to have your things where people are giving their opinion or not? Or and what is, obviously, outside of the obvious benefit that people get to see your show, see your things at a show, for an artist that hasn't made that leap yet,
Right.
what would you say?
Well, I think it's rather critical because otherwise your work's going to end up in your storage locker, and you need feedback. It's like everything else, I guess. It's good to get creative feedbacks, especially. I mean, most people are very polite and they respect your attempts, but it's not necessarily the kind of art criticism you might like to hear or get, to feedback. But generally, the public, of course, is supportive.
Yeah.
Not sure what else I can say about that.
No. It's just, for some people, it falls on that business side again, where it's like, should I invest? Should I go to a show? Should I travel and fly there? Is it going to be worth it?
Well, an event like this is, it can be costly for the artist.
Yeah.
So a lot of the just starting out artists who, whatever the amount is, $4,000 or $5,000 is significant for a 3-day, 4-day event. They're putting a lot on the line in terms of their personal economics.
Yeah.
So, I have to give those people credit. The exposure is critical, I think, in that case. And so more power to them. They're going to take the risk and make the effort. It's an opportunity. Maybe not for everybody. And if you're not ready, I wouldn't necessarily suggest you come to something like this to start. But because my background is there have been many opportunities at the community level in my neighborhood. There are small groups having shows or small galleries. So that's a very important venue also for starting out artists.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I know that we're going to be wrapping up here, and I want you to have an opportunity to get back to what it is that you're doing over there, what you do best. Is there anything else that you'd like to share in terms of your experience in this field, either personal development, business development, anything you'd like to?
Well, I personally am going to be talking to the people who are doing the EFTs and so forth to learn more about their transition from the object to the monitor. So I'm going to be learning myself a bit from what's going on here.
Yeah.
And I think artists, they need to be positive because you never know who's going to ask you a question, come visit your booth. That's a potential sale or some future network opportunity. So, yeah, you want to be there, greet people, and take advantage of the opportunity.
I would agree, and I was just sharing with someone, we were having what I call a bathroom moment. When you meet that person in the bathroom and you're like, oh, hey, you don't know each other, but you do by the time you walk out. Maybe it doesn't happen so much in the men's bathroom, but it happens all the time in the women's bathroom.
Okay.
We have great conversations, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and we were having that conversation about staying current and the NFT and the idea of the metaverse and all of those things that are happening. So look, I have a question that I ask everybody, and I'm going to ask you first to just share with the world where people can get in touch and see your work and access with you, and then I have one final question for you.
Okay.
All right. So where can they find you?
Well, I'm under the name Bill Thomson. I'm on a couple different websites, but also I have an Instagram and Facebook account, obviously. Through the Sculpture Society of BC, we have a very good website.
Okay.
So, and that website hosts not just me, but all our members' work, samples of our work. So I highly recommend people to access that to get a sense of what local talent there is, and especially if they're interested in sculpture or looking to, talk more with sculptors. So that's a good place to start.
Okay, so at Instagram, Bill Thompson.
Yes, or look up Sculpture Society of BC.
Okay, you'll be there. So my final question, my friend, is on your way to this desert island that you're going to be going to.
Oh.
You're going to go to a desert island, and you get to pack at least one suitcase. But in that suitcase, you have room for one album, and I know that you know albums.
I remember albums.
You remember albums? Okay. And you're going to take that one album with you. What's the album that you just couldn't imagine not listening to for?
Well, I'd like to say it's a classic work, but probably some Grateful Dead music would be appropriate for my vintage, and something that's loud and obnoxious. I'd love that.
That's perfect. The Grateful Dead. And there's someone in the audience that can relate.
One person. Yeah.
One person that can relate. Thank you so much for spending time with me today on Mission Accepted podcast, and I am looking forward to going over and seeing what you got over there.
Great. Yes, you're welcome. Thank you very much.